Back in 2017, I started making comics with my buddy Chris. Ever since then, I've been focused on just one thing. And today we're going to take a look at Tim Sale Solo, which might be the best premise for a mainstream comic book series. I'm Jason Lapidus, co-creator of Group of Seven and Peregrines and the upcoming HOGTOWN JACK, and I am on a mission. Join me on my continuing journey of leveling up. Welcome, comics readers, makers, and fans. In this episode, I'm taking a look at Tim Sale Solo from DC Comics in 2004 to see what I can learn to help me get closer to mastering the craft. Of course, keep in mind that this is not intended to be an exhaustive examination of this text or its history, but just a brief look at one or two of the elements of the work that I can learn from, and hopefully you can too. But before we dive in, you can support the channel by reading our books. 7 famous historical figures on a secret fictional mission to save the world. Group of Seven, a most secret tale. A team of secret agents, undercover as frontline nurses, defend against the unknown and the unbelievable. Peregrines, Flights, Fiends, and Fisticuffs. Both for sale in print and digital formats on our site, groupofsevencomics.ca. There you can also subscribe to our newsletter, stay up to date on upcoming comics, appearances, and episodes. Written by Chris Sanigan, art by yours truly. Thank you so much for all your support. In 2004, I was in university, a little late for a guy my age. I was in university and going to my local store at the time called Cyber City. And I was already a fan of Tim Sale's because of course, The Long Halloween. This series of Solo, every single issue features a different creator. So this first issue, which is number 1, you see there, is from 2004. And the series runs until 2006. Each issue features a different creator individually, and the editor, Mark Chiarello, gave these creators free reign. He gets to choose the creator, and then he lets them cook. And I don't think that there is maybe a better idea than letting people who are talented in their particular field, in this case, creating comics, what's better premise than letting them just do what they do best? And when you give them free reign to sort of tell the stories they want to tell, they're going to produce probably some of their best work, especially if they have strong collaborations with people like, in this case, Jeff Loeb, Brian Azzarello, to name a couple. Colorist Dave Stewart, for instance. So you're going to get great work out of talented creators when you give them the opportunity to do what they want to do. A single voice, narrative, or performance without accompaniment. It's half true in this case. And then tells us Tim Sale was born in Ithaca, New York, 1956. American illustrator and comic book artist, best known for noir sensibility, emphasis on storytelling, and frequent collaborations with writer Jeff Loeb. If you are a fan of what you see in this, or some of the stuff you might have seen by Tim Sale and you haven't read The Long Halloween, or Superman for All Seasons, or a series that's often known by its color names, so Hulk Gray, Spider-Man Blue, and I believe it's Captain America White. If you haven't read those, like, you'll get treated with some amazing Tim Sale stuff. Oh, and Daredevil Yellow. And that one, Sale is using ink wash. Here you can also see the creds. You can see first stories written by Darwin Cook, which I didn't mention off the top. We have one written by Jeff Loeb, Diana Schutz, Brian Azzarello. Beautiful. And then Tim Sale's writing a couple on his own too, which is really, really nice. Chiarello gets credit on inking. Richard Starkings is credited with lettering. Anytime you get Tim Sale working on Batman, it feels like it's going to be in its sort of own pocket universe. There is a series of Halloween stories that him and Jeff Loeb worked on. I believe in like Legends of the Dark Knight that I have a collected edition of from the late 90s. And it feels, I mean, as much as, you know, you can be emphasizing continuity, I don't really put much stock in it personally. And that's a personal choice. That's the way I'm reading comics at the age of 50. When I was younger, I think I cared a lot more about it. But keep in mind, one of the first Batman books I really got hold of was Dark Knight Returns, as well as books like Gotham by Gaslight, which are 2 high-quality graphic novels that aren't necessarily in any continuity. So I kind of went into my Batman reading experience with the idea of multiple continuities. There was also the movie that came out in '89, which was its own continuity. The Super Friends, the Batman 66, again, own continuities, and then the animated series. So in '92. So for me, every version of Batman visually really sat comfortably in its own continuity. I've never really worried about things matching. Let creators do what they do best. So on a page like this, I love seeing some 4-tier stuff. We get some quick shots right in these smaller panels. Tell the reader to spend less time on them. After you get that moody intro, we can kind of all hear the noises of the street at night. And I'm always struggling to not gush over Colors by Dave Stewart. He, without oversaturating things, he has just got the best taste. And I love that, the glow of the city is the outside and the cools are of the inside. And they are kind of contrasting, right? We got blue and orange, which makes each one feel distinct from the other, which is great. And then you get a little bit there. Just one little note. So when Tim Sale would have drawn this in ink, these buildings would have been drawn in black. So what's happened is that Dave Stewart or one of his assistants has gone in and selected the area of the window pane and, on a line art layer or a duplicated line art layer, and then used a color hold to make those that dark orange there, to really give us a sense we're looking through a pane of glass at objects that are far in the distance. Whereas the buildings here are done in the black ink, and they're represented as black. We're supposed to be outside looking at that, so they would appear as black to us. Now we're inside looking through a pane of glass. So the colorist has some control over, how we perceive that. And maybe there were notes from Sale to Dave Stewart, maybe not. But also with a colorist like Dave Stewart, you just trust him to do the right thing and to do it in good taste. Here as well, right? The line that's being created inside the glass case has been dulled a little bit in its and how black it is. This is essentially a play night between Catwoman and Batman. So they're going to just have a little chase. And it really isn't about a complicated plot. You're getting a short story, and we get some beautiful stuff. One of the things I like about Tim Sale's work is that he is thinking about the entire page as a piece of art. So as readers, we know when we're reading Western comics, we start here and we end up over here eventually. But he also knows that the eye takes in information and the brain processes it as a whole first in, fractions of a second. So we know already not to go here and try to read this looking for text until we get there, of course. But we're not supposed to be sort of scrolling across. We take it all in and we see its emotion there. So we still go from left to right as we do in Western comics. But we take the whole thing in as one image, and it's awesome. Really beautiful use of perspective. Tangle of two characters. It's funny how this is both capturing movement and looks very still at the same time. There's a quality in his art that I don't know how to put my finger on, where I find his artwork kind of calming and soothing and melancholic in a way, while the characters are still in motion. So obviously, like the super exaggerated flow of that cape, I don't think we're supposed to believe it goes all the way back into the museum or the gallery, but that cape just flows. Catwoman is just tangled up in Bruce's legs. That's great. Crazy organic shapes for those shards of glass. Here too, even though we do take this in as a whole, because of the use of vertical panels here and horizontal panels here, our eye quickly separates and we go back into that conscious effort to, maybe even subconscious mode of reading left to right comic books. Night sky is still in those, in the category of reds, from dark, obviously, to light as we get down into the city. We get only, like, one establishing shot kind of on this page. Knowing that we're high up, we don't even get a sense of where on the street this is, but it's not necessary. These two did also collaborate on a Superman story called Kryptonite, I think. And it was in like a Superman sort of anthology series. I've forgotten the name right now. I'll throw that in the comment section below. There's our one kind of establishing shot. We get some cool city lights. Very playful. Feels like right out of an old Looney Tunes cartoon. Another one where you kind of take it in as a whole. Beautiful 2-page spread, motion going from left to right. Some minor panels that you don't spend a lot of time on because they're so small. And again, beautiful perspective used to, create the ceiling. Nice too, like these characters are in the middle ground, but give us some foreground to help us create that depth that goes along with the perspective. So we've got some foreground, middle ground, and background characters. Really nice. And again, another 2-page spread. Great balance. I started noticing this first in Western comics. I think in maybe Miller's Wolverine Limited series, where he would have pages with extra white space and kind of balance across the 2-page spread. I love it when cartoonists do this, where they storytell across and just do multiple figures. I learned from Jim Rugg, calling it the DeLuca effect. I don't know if that's actually what this is called, but now in my regular speak, that's what I call it. The DeLuca effect. And I wonder here, okay, the black line on the back of Batman's cape into that deep purple of the billboard. So is that one going to be a choice by the colorist as to where his cape begins and where it ends? Or is Tim Sale himself giving some instruction about that? But again, he would have probably drawn this completely in black, like with ink. So that would be white, that would be black. You get it. You're smart. Fantastic. So cool to see. Batman tangled up and he just takes it. It's like when I come home and my dog greets me at the door. Sometimes you just gotta take some kisses from someone who loves you. Even if it makes you angry. Very cool. Short story. Now we get another one that went in a completely different direction than I was expecting. Really cool to see this sort of wet on wet wash effect that artist Mike Ruth, really, really great Southern Ontario artist. I remember once being at a comic book, like an in-store at Gotham Central in Mississauga, and Mike Ruth was like, wet on wet, right? I said, what? What on what? And he demonstrated his technique for me. Ruth is a great guy. Follow Uncouth Ruth on Instagram, and his demos are insanely beautiful and also kind of shocking and addictive to watch, and very humbling as another artist to watch the way Mike deftly executes his rendering. So the idea is that you put down water on your paper and then apply the ink to that area that's already wet. And the way that the ink moves across the wet surface, you can manipulate, and it creates these incredibly organic and moody tones. This one, it looks to me like this was scanned in color, and this is just the natural color of the ink as it kind of fades out. So this is some bad ink wash that I did, but you can see how it's not actually black and white. There is some sort of a bit of earthy tone to that. It's a little bit got a bit of brown in it. That's how it looks right side up. There you go. But this one, Obviously, Sale could be using different ink. He could be using different paper. It also could have been tinted one way or another to emphasize the browns and in that gray, browns and greens in that gray. Cool story. It feels very personal. Tim Sale wrote this one himself. I wonder what the intention was to have it represented so small, not using the full page. Maybe he worked at a smaller size and still wanted it reduced, as comic book pages are always reduced for print. Maybe these ones Sale wanted reduced as well, and it just created a certain mood. This one's a little murder tragedy. It's beautiful. Then from Diana Schutz, you get Young Love, Supergirl. I don't know much about Supergirl's, Silver Age interpretation, like the character's history, other than what sort of seeped into pop culture. But always neat seeing Sale do some happier, cheery characters. But like, you see how much black he still puts in. Like he doesn't really ever leave characters open. At least not too often. Like he puts down quite a bit of ink spotting, heavy blacks as part of his style, and I gravitate toward it. I mean, that's a ton. And here too. In terms of color, this is like, I'm guessing, because I've seen it, I've tried it too. This looks like it's just a Photoshop filter that you put on that separates. It's often just called halftone, even if it's not actually half, but it's sort of a generic name for it. It's kind of gotten into pop culture too. But it makes it look like the panels are from an older comic book when they used to use Ben-Day dots as a way to blend the 4 different inks into 64 options. 66 if you want to count pure black and pure white. I think if you're going to do this, by the way, best make the paper off-white. Kind of all goes together, and maybe reduce the heaviness of the black. This is a story of love over many, many years. And a bit of a 21st century look back at maybe some nostalgic romance from the 20th. Heartwarming. Touching stuff. There's a certain, like I said, melancholic kind of stillness to a lot of Sale's work that I really enjoy, even when his characters are in motion. It feels like an additional chapter of Superman for All Seasons, which is beautiful, and it was originally colored by Bjorn Hansen in Superman for All Seasons. Like, it was so gorgeously colored, and this one is beautifully done as well by Jose Villarrubia. But I think he is sort of stepping in to kind of replicate the effect, that almost watercolor look. This might actually be watercolor, but I'm saying he's replicating what Bjorn Hansen was doing in Superman for All Seasons, telling the story of a young Clark Kent. And this one is great. He's prom night, but he still goes to help the grumpy old lady from down the road when her car is stuck, and he gets covered up in the mud, but he finds a solution. This is cool to me. Okay, so Clark flies up, yes, finds some rain, and cleans himself off. If you take a good close look at this, which of course I did, these lines, these rain lines, which are in white, they're represented in white now, this is all ink. And I'm very, very certain they were originally done in black, and here's why. So again, talking about how to do a color hold, how to take the black line that's been drawn in ink. Once it's been digitized, you separate or like isolate that black line from the white of the paper. And then you can create a selection area and do what you want with those lines. Like, you can turn them into whatever you want. So if we look real close, I'm going to see if we can see in the camera here. Along the edges, okay, take a real close look. See where they're still black? Right there. So in the process of selecting, you can see my cuticles and very dry skin. There you go. You're welcome for that. I can see how black they are. You can also see how it's very organic splatter too. You can see at the edges that just a little bit of them. Very cool. All right. So my point is that in the process of making these lines white, an active hand has to go and use the selection tool to kind of isolate that area and then turn things white. But they only go so far. They don't go all the way up to the panel border line. So there is sort of like, I'm not saying it's rushed. I'm not saying they didn't do a good job, but they could have gotten a little closer if they wanted to hide it. But there's no reason to try and hide it. Just kind of get it done. And it reads perfectly, so no complaints. I'm not at all suggesting there's anything wrong with that. But that's how I know that those were originally done in black. So these are black lines drawn across and then turned into white to create that sort of the depth of the rain. So there's water going this way as Clark is spinning, and there's the natural rainfall up and down. And a cool black and white photo at the end there. The Low Card in the Hole by Brian Azzarello. Often I get to read Brian Azzarello comics drawn by Eduardo Rizzo, and they've had a long-standing relationship. 100 Bullets, as well as there's a Batman arc that they worked on together. Many things. This is, again, a very film noir piece. Just such heavy blacks. But that makes that stand out, doesn't it? This to me is some of like Tim Sale's best stuff, where he's using like dry brush techniques that then you can do the color hold on and make it whatever color you want. Or is this actually an ink wash? But there's all sorts of wash being used. And on a personal note, I got into making comics thinking about wash as a way to make some grayscale, something in between. Give myself a third, fourth, and fifth tone. And so seeing it used deftly, like very effectively by a master like Sale, it's very inspiring. So like the brickwork, it just looks really, really, really good. And boy, does he ever do his femme fatale justice. Her throwing her arm behind her hip as she walks, like what a commanding presence. And having the steam of the street from the sewer grate represent her, put her on almost on like a spotlight in a way. Just beautiful work. Spoilers. Put all your time here, buddy. Look at that. The amount of work that went into that one. Gorgeous. Lastly, I Concentrate on You. Written by Tim Sale. Different style again. And there's just that one sort of half tone. These ones actually are done on an off-white. It's great. This is really beautiful. You can see the difference here between the white and then the gutters. So that is white. That is one tone, and that is another one. It looks really good. And this looks like a little bit like it was a special moment that he is retelling that his parents have told him that story. And this is sort of a moment his parents have a particular dance. And it's beautiful. Really, really nice. Great issue. Many other, there are 12 issues in total in this series. I don't have them all. I haven't read them all. They were collected for were they calling it a special edition or deluxe edition in 2013? I've yet to come across that book, and when I do come across it, I will pick it up if I can. I have the other issues by Darwin Cook, of course, Paul Pope, Mike Allred, and there are 8 others beyond that, and they're all beautiful, I'm sure, because the idea of letting creators do what they want to do and the way they want to do it is the way you're likely going to get your best work if you've selected good creators. That is the key there. We've seen what happens when comic book creators do not have a strong relationship with editorial, or do not have strong guidance from editorial, and they don't necessarily have the most well-rounded storytelling sense. They do what they want to do, and you can love it, but they don't often hold up over time. You know, history shows that when you let certain artists do what they want, they kind of create a lot of junk, and that's all fine. To each their own. But from an artistic point of view, letting artists make their art is a beautiful formula to get maybe a true representation of those artists and their inspiration. But you have to have good taste in artists, or good taste in storytellers, let's put it that way. Because good cartoonists are good storytellers. Having short stories in an anthology comic like this, I think they really open up opportunities for cartoonists, because these short stories are like, they're easier investments. They take less time in terms of how many pages it takes to tell a story. So if let's say it's an 8-page story, that could be 8 working days or 16 working days. So it's a less of an investment for the artist to put in. Therefore, it's an easier opportunity to take a risk on a story that is maybe out of their comfort zone, or doesn't have its own true tested audience. You can just tell these little short vignettes that can be really beautiful without having to give it its own title and create all the promotion for it as a distinct story. But by putting it in an anthology, you get to use Catwoman or Batman as a promotion vehicle and their image to get these smaller, beautiful stories out there that maybe are personal or a little bit off the beaten path. So short stories, anthologies, great way to take some risks as publishers and as storytellers. Seeing this issue and other work by Tim Sale, it really inspires me to want to put color over top of my ink wash art. Maybe one day I'll be lucky enough to color the Peregrines series I'm working on now, which is full of ink wash, or go back maybe and color Group of 7 Most Secret Tale. We shall see, but I'm inspired to do that. I've always wanted to see what it would look like and what coloring approach to take. As well, I love the way Tim Sale creates explosive movement and stillness, even when characters are moving in different times. And I've been focused so much on artists like Kirby, Bruce Timm, Darwin Cook. Those guys, their movement is really, really dynamic and beautiful. Often comes right at you. Whereas I find with Mignola and Tim Sale, even when their characters are in motion, there's a certain calmness to it, which kind of creates a certain pace to the reading experience. So I find their books very, very soothing to read. I find that their artwork very soothing to look at. And I want to dissect that a little more and figure out why it is the way it is. Have you learned anything that I haven't mentioned? Add it, of course, to the comments section below this video. Do me a favor, hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends, and I'll see you in the next episode.